Okay, in this tutorial we're going to take a look at how you might make your own plants or foliage in a scene without using any plugins like I've shown in the past. So this would be your own way. It has nothing to do with this horse trailer. This happens to be in the scene. It was something I was working on for the tornado simulator. So I'll just put it anywhere. So let's just start an object in the scene. Let me see how we want to start it. Let's add a curve to the scene. Okay, so just add a mesh, a curve, Bezier curve like this. Alright, let's see where it is. It is laying flat, so I'm going to do RX90 just so I know which way it's facing, and then maybe I'll do RY90 so it's facing like that. This is going to be the basis of my plant. We'll keep this really basic. And then once I have the plant, since it's already in curve format like that, if you can come over here, you have the curve menu, so click that. I'll make sure it's in 3D. I'm going to go into full mode, and I'm going to give it a little bit of depth. Like that. So there's my basic. That'll be my basic tree that I'm going to start with. This is not going to be your fancy plant, but it'll give you an idea. So alright, so it's still a curve, so before I do anything I have to convert that away from a curve back into a mesh. So then I go to object, come up here to convert, and convert to mesh from curve. So now it's actually a real mesh again. So you can go in, you can see the points, edit it. So a lot of times what I like to do is, of course, transform. Let's make sure transform the origin to the geometry if it's not already there, and which it is, and then press the period on the numpad. That way it zooms me into the object. That way when I rotate directly around it. So now I'm going to use this as the basis for creating the plant. So let me move my cursor, say down. We'll move this up a little bit. And actually, you know what I'm going to do just from the previous lesson, just like I like to do, Control A, and I'm going to apply that as a rotation, like there. So now I'm going to come down here, and at that location where this was, approximately, yeah, it is approximately there, I'm going to add an empty object. You'll see why here in a second. So add just regular empty plain axes right there. All right, I'm going to use that as a basis for controlling this here in a second. Alright, so just like I showed you how to use the array modifier in the previous lesson like this, I'm going to use the same thing. I'm just going to slide it out of the way here for a second. So this is just called empty. Alright, so remember this. So now we can go back and use the array modifier. Now in this case what I'm going to do, it's using it like usual. It's saying use the x-axis. It's got an offset of 1, you know, like this here. But now instead I'm going to use an object offset. And the object I'm going to use is going to be that empty axis there. So I'll just, if it's not there in the list, I'll just type EM, and there it is right there. So I've used the empty. So now it's being affected by this empty as well. So let me take this and move it up, and you can see there it is like this. Okay, in fact, not only is it affecting it by the positioning of this object like this, but it's also affecting it by the scaling. If I scale this on Z, SZ, it's scaling that. I'm not scaling the object, I'm scaling the axis, all right? Or SX, scaling it like this. Okay? So I'm going to grab this, and then I'm going to position that right here, and I'm going to start making counts on here. So now what I want to do is I want to take this thing, and I'm going to just rotate it on Z, RZ. All right? And when I do, you can see what it's doing. It's rotating the objects around. Now when I come back into the array modifier on this object and start doing this, you see it starts rotating it around in a circle like that. And then if I was to move this axis here as well, you can see it's moving the whole thing like this. Or if I take the whole empty, I'll just move the whole empty up like that. So just by adjusting between the empty and the axis, so like I said, maybe I want it a little bit wider, so since I have control of the empty, I'll do S, Shift Z, and I'll shift it out like there. Okay, there we go. There's my new plant. Now, you know, it's not much of a plant, right? Of course, but there's the object. I'll just apply it. Suddenly I have my new object there in the scene, and using your own. So, you know, it really comes down. Oh, and if the nice thing about this is you can come into the edit mode. You can go into edit mode on these guys right here, right? And I do have one of the objects selected, so I'm just going to press GX, and by changing the one, then you're actually changing all of them. Even though I've applied the modifier, it's kind of like having multiple copies of all these at the same time. So it's a lot of fun, and I'd say just have at it and practice, but it's really all about that object offset within the array modifier. Okay, well that's it for this lesson, and I'll see you in the next lesson.